here, and thousands of U.S. service members are taking over the bay. From the air to the sea, they are showing off their most advanced tools.
We keep ships, people, assets safe, and then we exploit the environment to give our forces tactical advantage.
And collaborating with local emergency responders for future worst-case scenarios.
There's no substitute for actually putting it in practice and testing all your assumptions and making sure you thought of everything.
We're going behind the scenes to find out what it takes to run a floating city on the sea.
I had an experience in restaurants before. I was a waiter as well. But it's way different on the ship.
Gearing up for a big weekend on the bay.
This is CBS News Bay Area with Elizabeth Cook.
I'm Ann Magovic in for Liz, and the Blue Angels might be the stars of the show, but there is so much more flying under the radar during Fleet Week. We've got a behind-the-scenes look at life in the Navy, how they prepare for disasters, keep safe on the seas, even how they feed hundreds of hungry sailors. There it is. It feels like it was even louder when you're outside, definitely. If you're around the bay, you probably heard the Blue Angels already practicing this afternoon ahead of their shows that start tomorrow. Chopper managed to get some video of them up in the skies as they zoomed past at over 700 miles an hour. And even though they fly shows all across the country all year long, the pilots say that the San Francisco Bay is unlike any other stop on their tour. But they are, of course, fully aware of the issues that Darren was just talking about that the weather can create.
The Golden Gate Bridge in downtown San Francisco, the Bay Bridge, all of these things that you see here that you don't see anywhere else. Unfortunately, we don't get a vote in the weather and what it does, so we'll adjust as needed.
Yeah, so the air show takes off tomorrow at 12:45 with the Blue Angels expected to perform at around 3 p.m. Gets going a little bit earlier Saturday and Sunday at 12:30, but the Blue Angels still expected at around 3 p.m. Of course, meteorologists like our Darren play a huge role in making sure military operations aren't affected by any of the weather events happening around our globe on a constant basis. Brian Hackney gives us a firsthand look at their crucial work.
From tropical depression to Category 5 hurricane in less than 3 days. The winds of war are nothing compared to Mother Nature on the high seas.
Storm systems, tropical systems can spin up very quickly, so it's our job to mitigate that and give our commanders a heads up so we have time to take appropriate action.
We are on the USS Tripoli LHA-7.
The USS Tripoli is an American-class amphibious assault ship docked in San Francisco, carrying F-35B jets and helicopters across the world's oceans.
It's crucial to have our team on board.
That crucial team, gentlemen, good morning, is METOC, meteorologists and oceanographers in the Navy. And with the perils you can face at sea, no wonder they have some of the best meteorologists on board using some fairly familiar sounding equipment.
Some of our basic technical tools are our anemometer, barometer.
Here's the temperature, the dew point, the wet bulb.
And as analysts, we take an observation every hour.
On board, Navy ships have constant access to sophisticated weather forecast models.
A weather forecast is very important for wind, seas. If we're off by 5-10 knots, it can mean honestly destruction of the ship, or it can honestly lead to safety of navigation.
It can still happen. In 2018, a fighter jet went over the side of the USS Roosevelt in rough seas. Imagine the challenge. At any time, the Navy has the capability of deploying as many as 50,000 sailors aboard 100 different ships, and on board as much as $10 billion worth of military aircraft. And boy, that has to be protected.
We keep ships, people, assets safe, and then we exploit the environment to give our forces tactical advantage.
It's an exciting challenge for young airman Dwayne Hayes.
I'm from Florida, so being out west was such a big move, and I've never been on a ship, so it's been very, very exciting.
And Dwayne and the other 1,000 aboard the ship here for Fleet Week say, "Hello, San Francisco!" And one more thing, they're well prepared for any winds that will inevitably spring up.
Well, still ahead, we are going below deck to find out what it takes to feed hundreds of crew members on some of those huge Navy ships now docked in the bay. We are continuing to track that Hurricane Milton we've been following. The latest satellite images show the storm continuing to move east, away from Florida. It weakened to a Category 1 as it moved through the eastern part of the state early this morning. But by then, the damage had certainly been done. At least 10 people were killed in that storm. President Biden is urging people who evacuated to wait to hear from their local leaders before heading back to survey their damage. Take a look at some of this destruction in Palm Beach. Roofs ripped up, debris scattered everywhere, not to mention all of that water damage. Most of the damage was caused by the powerful wind and multiple tornadoes that sprang up across the state yesterday. This is a look at Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg. That's home to the Tampa Bay Rays. You can see the roof torn to pieces. Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis says the extent of the damage will become more clear over the next few days. The deadly storm appears not to be as catastrophic as predicted, but power is still out for more than 3 million people, and the threat of flooding remains. Police and fire crews still wading through flooded streets, trying to help people and pets get to safety.
We'll do everything in our power to help you put pieces back together.
You know, the timeline is going to be dictated by safety.
We have over 1,000 folks that are in Florida already. Some of those were there supporting Debbie and Helene, and a bit will be repurposed to be able to support the Milton response.
President Biden says FEMA has the funds needed to handle the disaster, but he is calling on Congress to come back to session early to help pass new funding to help businesses get back up and running. And you can help people affected by Hurricanes Milton and Helene by using the QR code there on your screen. You can also donate at redcross.org/CBS or call 1-800-RED-CROSS. You could also text hurricanes to 90999 to donate. Well, first responders and the U.S. military spend hours training for disasters like Milton, so they are ready to spring into action whenever and wherever they are needed. In fact, as part of Fleet Week, more than 200 people from local, regional, state, and federal agencies came together for the Department of Emergency Management's biggest drill ever.
We have not experienced a major disaster since 1989, and even Loma Prieta earthquake that happened in that year, while it was bad, it was not the worst that we can expect.
This year's drill really wanted to hone in on one important logistical component of a disaster response involving transportation. Our Max Darrow was there from start to finish.
When a disaster strikes, like the Loma Prieta earthquake did nearly 35 years ago, you see boots on the ground and a massive coordinated response. But in order for that to happen, all of the players involved need to be running the same playbook.
Thank you, ma'am.
Which is why military personnel, first responders, volunteers, and city workers like Elijah Saunders got a practice run in during Fleet Week by taking part in the Defense Support of Civil Authorities, or DSCA drill. It was the first time for Saunders, who works for the Department of Public Health.
Hopefully how to prepare for a disaster, specifically how to get from Oakland to San Francisco if the bridge collapses.
The Department of Emergency Management says 57% of city and county employees live outside of San Francisco. Saunders is one of them. But in the event of a major disaster that disrupts transportation and damages infrastructure, as was the case in 1989, they'd need to get into San Francisco's Emergency Operations Center to help with the response. So first, they'd hop on a ferry.
As a city worker, you're what's called a disaster service worker, a DSW. And so to me, that's always been pretty abstract. You know, like I know that we have this mandate as city workers to respond in the event of a disaster, but it's always kind of been, you know, very hypothetical.
Although it wasn't intense, going through the drill made it seem real to Saunders, which he felt was very important.
Yeah, if you don't practice, how are you going to be prepared? But then also you have these climate disasters, which are happening much more frequently all across the country and the world. So I think it absolutely could happen within my lifetime and within the time that I work for the city.
Robert Smuts was also on board. He's the deputy director for the Department of Emergency Management. He says this was the largest exercise the department has conducted.
You can do a lot doing a tabletop or just writing the plan, but there's no substitute for actually putting it in practice and testing all your assumptions and making sure you've thought of everything.
Once people make it across the bay, their next mode of transportation would be by bus. As the exercise played out, Saunders' appreciation for it grew.
I would imagine if this was real, there'd still be a lot of stress involved. There'd be a lot of anxiety. But I think, having a bit of an idea of what to expect as far as at least getting into the city definitely helped. My job is very different from preparing for emergencies, so it's very nice to know that there are people who are thinking about this and planning this type of stuff and putting a lot of thought into the preparation of these scenarios.
So whether the big one or another kind of emergency, Saunders and others who'd play an important role in the response will be a little more sure of their footing from the moment disaster strikes.
Taking a live look out at one of the more than 12 ships docked in San Francisco's Bay for Fleet Week. Thousands of Marines and sailors are in town right now, getting a small taste of the Bay Area, and it is, of course, far different from what they're used to when they are deployed. Our Kevin Coe gives us a behind-the-scenes look inside the kitchen of the USS Somerset and how a handful of cooks feed hundreds while out at sea.
Chicken, I got you. Thank you. You're welcome.
It's Fried Chicken Day for 900 hungry sailors and Marines. Serving this food is the culmination of a never-ending day of work for a handful of cooks or culinary specialists on the USS Somerset. Petty Officer Donald Eddy is in charge of the kitchen.
We have $560,000 worth of food on board right now.
All that food is kept here in shipping container-sized refrigerators. Food is hauled in as needed, traveling a lot of steps through a team of Marines and sailors. Getting this food into the kitchen quickly is key because they only have 2 hours to cook for hundreds. That's why John Angeles is stepping in too. The seaman is a culinary specialist in the kitchen for about 12 to 14 hours a day.
I had an experience in restaurants before. I was a waiter as well, so. But it's way different on the ship.
That's because Angeles never had to make 180 pizzas in 2 hours like he's doing now.
Mozzarella mix here, added parsley flakes to it, an Italian seasoning blend, mixed in some Parmesan, coat it with some oil around there, around the actual outside of it.
Angeles is one of 6 putting together pizzas right now. As soon as these cheese, pepperoni, and meat lovers pizzas are done,
I'm gonna take it to the rack. We'll take it to the ovens once it's ready to cook.
These 14 ovens are waiting for all those pizzas, 480 pounds of chicken wings, and about 600 cookies. Every meal includes about $15,000 worth of food, cooking in a kitchen unlike any on land.
When we're out to sea, the ship is rocking. You got stuff sliding around, spill some oil on the deck. It can be a little dangerous in here at times, but you still gotta get the job done.
Okay, so once you get to your table, you'll find a lot of condiments. Sailors on board, across the board, actually tell me hot sauce is their magic secret. Now, I know this isn't a Michelin level meal, but it's created by just a few people for hundreds on board in a very limited amount of time. And by the way, it's not bad.
Not bad. All right, hot sauce, of course, improves everything. Coming up after the break, a moment of zen atop a massive military ship. We're out with some of the men and women on board the USS Tripoli to see how they get the day going right. All right, everybody breathe deeply. Here's a look at the quieter side of Fleet Week this morning. Service members started the day with a yoga session on top of the USS Tripoli. It's a chance for them to clear their minds and relax from a very stressful job.
It was relieving with some of the positions, and as they were talking and they were telling us, to just let go and to just breathe and focus on your breathing. So that was really good.
Be sure to join us tomorrow for our Fleet Week Spectacular Friday live coverage of the parade at ships starting at 11 a.m., followed by the Blue Angels at 3 right here on KPIX.